This is the Backlog Exposed podcast, bringing you weekly discussions on gaming, as well as quick insights into sports, entertainment, and anything else that we can think of. To get in touch with us, be sure to check out our website, thebacklogexposed.com, where you can find all of our social media details like Twitter, Discord, YouTube, and Facebook. Now. Gear up and get ready, because this backlog is about to be exposed. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Backlog Exposed, and it is November 28th, and we're hitting you with a midweek episode, and this is episode number 28. And we have a special guest host with us today. Jason is a friend of mine from up in Maryland, and known him for a couple of years. Big-time video game enthusiast, a dad as well, and likes a lot of other things too that I like, UFC, WWE, all that fun stuff. And so we used to get together and watch quite a bit of entertainment, sports entertainment, and all that stuff when we used to live near each other. Now we're far apart, but we still keep in touch when we can, and it's always good to hear from him. And so, Jason, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll have to kind of revisit the WWE part because I'm trying to rediscover my enthusiasm with that product, but yeah, everything else you're on point. So
that's actually a good topic to jump right into, because as long as I've known you, there has been no discussion there. It's pretty much you've been a big fan. So what's happened to change your mind there?
I've been a big fan since the high school years, but I kind of fell off there, like 2001 to 2005, I think it was. But I don't know. Recently, it feels like the storylines are just recycled. Like they just rehash old storylines. Like Dean Ambrose storyline from back like a year ago was pretty much a rehash of the Stone Cold, and how they basically, like with Roman Reigns, they just throw everything. It's like every storyline that ever worked to get over any of the old stars, they threw at him. They just rehashed. And it just feels like deja vu over and over.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I like to go back and watch some older stuff. And, I talked about it a little bit. I did the backyard wrestling stuff. My brother and I had a lot of influence in ours and our friends' lives, in the sense of like getting people together, coming up with storylines, trying to, and when we did it, as silly as it is, it kept us out of doing drugs and all this, stupid kids do these days. And we just, went in the backyard and messed around, and it seems silly, but it was a lot of fun, big camaraderie. And so what we did was we came up with storylines that made our friends laugh or surprised them. And to the point where we had two friends, and I'm not going to name names or anything right now, but we had two friends where one cheated one messed around with the other one's girlfriend in real life.
So some real drama.
Real drama. Like, those two don't go near each other. We got to do our part to help out, because one of them was a bigger guy, and, but we liked them both. Everyone liked them both. And behind the scenes, they made a plan to pretend to fight each other in front of us all. It was all a ruse. It was a ruse, and it got us all. I mean, there was only one person in on it, or two people in on it, and it was them. The rest of us saw them attack each other, and we thought, oh shit, here it goes. And then instead of attack, like they started attacking each other, and then we all went in to stop it, and then they turned around, joined forces, and attacked us, and they were a team. So it was like, bygones be bygones. WVF was more important than, so WVF before hose, I guess, is the best way to put it back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, we came up with these storylines, and it's funny because we were kids. I mean, we were like 12, 13, 14, up to maybe 16 years old doing this crap. And our storylines were better than what I see on TV these days.
Oh, yeah. You guys could probably at least fall through in a storyline. It's like the current WWE writing staff can't even stick with. There's no consistency.
It's funny because, the consistency, but also the roster. It's very weird. In the past, you had clear-cut situations that people were in. Not necessarily. I'm okay with the anti-villain being the good guy, or what, or being the bad guy, and the villain being the good guy. Like Stone Cold kind of brought that era in where the bad guy is the good guy, and The Rock kind of helped push that.
We also had Kevin Nash back in the day.
You did have clear-cut villains back then.
But he was also kind of a crowd favorite too. I think he was him and who was it? The Kevin Nash and then the
Scott Hall
Scott Hall,
they had a couple of good runs. I mean, even with the when they went over to the NWO and they did that stuff, they were fan favorites, but they were bad guys. But I'm talking more along the lines of like when you've got to have people that, like, in order to cheer for somebody you may not want to cheer for, there's got to be a reason. And so in my understanding, like, I jumped back into wrestling. I didn't watch it for a good 10 years. And then I started watching it with you, and I just didn't understand the Roman Reigns thing. Like, to me, jumping in and not knowing anything about his history, all I saw was this guy who was kind of bland, who looked good, but, he was wearing, in my opinion, like the Big Boss Man outfit from the 2000s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I saw. And he didn't have anything to provide. He was big, but he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's fast, but he's definitely not the fastest guy in the world. He had very little charisma from a microphone standpoint. So as a newer watcher of the current generation, I didn't understand what was going on with this guy. And so I thought, I'm sitting here thinking of like, what could they do to get this guy over? And maybe I'm completely wrong, but
they should have made him heel.
That's what I was going to say, is they had to do something to capitalize on what they could with him. And you said it best back then. You said he needs to turn heel. And you, like, every time we watched him wrestle, you were expecting that to happen at that moment.
Yeah. I mean, they teetered on it with John Cena a few times. And they could have done, like, some of these guys, like, I know John Cena just wouldn't do it. That's just not who he is. He doesn't believe in turning heel. But, like, if he would have gone, like, this completely, like, turned into, like, this sociopath, like, gone with the whole, like, angle of, because everyone always, like, all the backstage rumors that John Cena, he never puts anyone over. He's very self-centered and all that. He only does stuff for the kids because for his image. If he kind of ran with that, like for like a heel image and like a sociopath type storyline, like it would be so freaking awesome. But they'll never pull the trigger on something like that.
Yeah, and maybe he just wants to be that ultimate good. Maybe he truly just doesn't want to have that for his image. Maybe his publicist or advisor is saying this wouldn't be good for you because you got to do movies and you wouldn't get as many roles. Who knows? I mean, there's so much that comes down to it, but at the end of the day, their product suffers because they have people who dictate what they want. And then you have, I think Vince had some really good ideas for a very long time, but I think he's kind of handed those reins off to his successors, his son and Triple H and all that. I am not a fan, personally, of Triple H's style of storyline. Like, ever since he got in the mix, I just can't get super like sucked in. I used to turn off. What's that?
You like NXT, right?
I do, but I think it's the talent in NXT and the hunger that they have. The storylines, I don't get super sucked in. I mean, but when you look at Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa, like that storyline, I jumped in the middle of that. I had no idea who they were, but their talent telling a story in the ring. And I went back and watched a bit of like, where did that come from? I saw that guy in Ring of Honor back when my buddy Todd was there, Ciampa, and I didn't know much about him, but I've seen him live. And now all of a sudden he's this like super evil dude. That is the kind of guy who needs to be in the top spots in WrestleMania, in my opinion. Yeah. Someone who can draw heat, who can tell a story, who can wrestle good, and who just like Aleister Black. He's pretty good. I've seen him a couple times now. I think NXT, a lot of it comes down to those people are humble. They're not superstars like they're the minor leagues compared to those big guys. And so while they're still in the big leagues, they're not, they can go to a local circuit and run the show and everyone cheers for them like they're the gods of the show. But, if they walk into a WWE locker room, they're going to get hazed. They're going to be treated like rookies. And so that you still got the drive. They want to prove themselves. They want to work hard. And I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to watch War Games. I told you to.
No.
But that was, dude, they had an 8-on-8. I don't know if you've seen War Games before, but it's 2 rings put together with a cage
Back
over.
in, something like the WCW days. Like,
Yeah. Yep. Kind of like that. And then what they do is they put everyone on the apron and they start off with 1-on-1. And then after 4 or 5 minutes, I think it was, one person is let out of the cage. So like the bad guy got an advantage 2-on-1. And then 3 minutes later, it's like the Royal Rumble almost until everyone's in the ring and then the match starts. Yep. So what are they called? The guys that have the belts and everything. I can't think of their name right now. Then the NXT Tag Champions, and they have a stable over there, which I used to love stables too. I think that they used to tell good stories about the stables, and they get more people involved. Now you have the Survivor Series, and it's not loaded with 4-on-4 matches of stories. Everybody have their moment, and they're running. It's stupid. It's like their moments. They're just not good at telling stories and having like everyone has to get a chance to win or something. Like you can't just have a clear. I watched the main Survivor Series. Right? Was that Brock Lesnar? Did you watch it? Survivor Series?
I saw the footnotes. I tell you this, if we're going to be talking about this consistently, it'll give me an actual reason to watch the product. So I'll start watching again. If we're going to be discussing it on a weekly basis, that'll give me motivation to watch. So I'll start. Absolutely. I'll carry on. I'll go back and look at Raw and SmackDown. Start from there.
Nice. So on Survivor Series, and I'm going to pull up the results here while we're talking, just because I was watching that, and what would the running? Okay, hold on. Just give me 2 seconds here while I pull up the results.
While you're doing that, I just got to say that they got to get rid of the damn red shirt and blue shirt. That just looks tacky and cheesy. Like,
oh yeah, they got to get rid of that. The teams. It doesn't need Raw versus SmackDown unless there's a reason for it. Okay, I watched a couple of these matches, and I see Braun Strowman and Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley. It was like a 4-on-4 Raw versus SmackDown. I watched this match, and like all they did was continue storylines for Raw. They only fed future feuds and future storylines for Raw in that match.
See, yeah,
And isn't Survivor Series supposed to be like a finale of feuds and a finale of situations? Instead, you're left hanging with what's going to happen next, as opposed to a conclusion to, just significant storylines. When you had like Hulk Hogan and the Legion of Doom and who was the Big Boss Man versus what was it, Macho Man? I can't remember the match, but like Demolition or Powers of Pain or whatever it was. Like at the end of that was the end of Hogan and Macho Man's feud, or Hogan and whoever's feud, and then they continued on with somebody else afterwards. Now it's like just.
So you just listed stables. Yeah, I think that's important because I know that's when I started watching WWF back in like the Stone Cold days. I remember the whole big was it DX versus
Oh yeah, Heart Foundation or
it was DX versus the Nation of Domination. Like the Rock, I used to love The Rock back when he was like a heel, and like I think he's an awesome heel. He's like one of the best heels there ever was. He's one of the first true heels that could make fun of an audience, and the audience is still kind of endear him,
And they're with him. Yeah, make fun of him, but they're still with him. Wanted to hear it.
And he had those freaking chops and sideburns. Freaking hilarious.
Not to sidetrack you here, but I think current day Elias, has some of that career. I don't think he's near as electrifying as The Rock.
No, you're right. He's one of the guys I like the most on the current roster that, I can get behind him.
But what's funny is for a year and a half, I've been seeing this guy come out and do the same thing, and nothing really happens with him. And then he jobs a match here and there. And it's like, you have a guy who actually gets the whole entire crowd to shut the hell up and with him. And he's a bad guy. And then they laugh. You could do something more with that. He's not the honky tonk man. He's got a bit more. He's got athleticism. He's got charisma. And so,
I wonder if there's backstage going on with like allowing people to have a certain amount of creativity, because I know most of the people, like the fact that they have like only like one wrestler is allowed, they don't even call them wrestlers, one superstar is allowed to use like the word asshole like once in a show, and it's usually reserved for people like Lesnar or someone big. Like the fact that they have to script everything so much, I think, is a big hindrance.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, I asked my buddy Todd if he could come on the show just to chat, and talk about his life experiences getting to where he's at, and he said he couldn't. They wouldn't even let him.
That doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me either. Like, I don't hold against him or anything. I didn't think he would be able to, but at the same time, it's like, man, that's a promotion of your product. I guess the fear that they say something wrong, but there's such a control over it. Meanwhile,
they can't control it. Yeah.
Yeah, and meanwhile, their storylines that they're writing are just kind of blah. They're nothing to get you over, nothing to keep you so attached. So I watched the Ronda Rousey Charlotte Flair match, where Charlotte Flair just kicked the living shit out of Ronda Rousey for 5 minutes.
What?
And that was that. Yeah, I don't know if you saw it, but she cheated. I mean, she was using chairs and
okay. I mean, you like a legitimate fight. Like, I can't do that.
Yes, like they started wrestling, and then she just went and got a kendo stick and started hitting her, but she was hitting her for real to the point where at the end of the match, Rousey had all over her body, she had red welts that were legit welts. So it was obvious that she said, no, just hit me with that thing. When we get out there, go nuts. And Charlotte did. It was to put Charlotte over as a heel, but you know what happened? By the end of they started booing Rousey.
What? Like, why is that?
Because the crowd is weird, right? So I don't even know why, but as she was walking down the aisle, like leaving the ring, the crowd started booing him, and she was like crying because she didn't understand what the fuck was going on, and it didn't make any sense. It was
I mean, I haven't really followed Rousey since beyond a couple months ago, but I know like the way that they had her coming out there like all smiling and like and all that. Well, I think some of that was on her too, but she's
not a good actress.
Yeah, she should have had the Lesnar treatment. Like, she should get Paul Heyman, and she should have a mouthpiece and just show up and just destroy people and leave.
Well, like in real life, she's her best friend or one of her closest friends is Shayna Baszler, who she got into the WWE, who's the women's champion in NXT, and Shayna Baszler there's a girl named Jessamine Duke, who is also in NXT, and then another girl, right? So. Yeah. They called themselves in real life the female Four Horsemen or something like that, or the Four Horsewomen.
Yeah.
And so obviously those three are being, trained to be able to make the main roster so that they can have that stable. I'm assuming that's an idea that they're going to entertain as those girls get, but when you watch them, I hate to be an asshole. They're not that good. Shayna Baszler, Jessamine Duke, they're MMA fighters who were subpar MMA fighters who don't have the best mic skills, and Ronda Rousey does not have mic skills. So now you have a team of people. But there's no problem with that if you put the right mouthpiece in front of them. So you're right. Paul Heyman needs to ditch Brock and run Rousey and make them be the brute female group that just kicks the shit out of everybody and talks. Yeah. But you know what? The second they do that, someone's going to come along and say, you have to have a man talk for the women. And it just becomes all this bullshit, and everyone has to cater to that shit as opposed to doing the right thing for the gimmick that they're trying to push. Meanwhile, I think that they booed Ronda Rousey, not because of her performance, because she took a beating for real, but I think they booed because, again, here you have Charlotte Flair loses by disqualification for no reason, just goes crazy with a kendo stick and a chair and attacks her. And there's no conclusion here. It's just now she's crazy again. We've seen that before.
Yeah, they're just rehashing the same stuff over and over.
And then you have the main event where Daniel Bryan turns bad and then starts and fights Brock Lesnar. And Daniel Bryan gets more offense off than anybody except for Goldberg has ever gotten off of Brock Lesnar. And then Brock just squashes him and wins.
Well, I mean, I guess they kind of did that because I know a lot of people kind of compare AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan a little bit, and maybe because I know didn't Lesnar and AJ Styles, they had a match and like AJ almost squeezed out a victory, but not quite. So they probably didn't like give leverage to Daniel Bryan having. But still, I mean, if he was destroying Lesnar, or he said he turned heel.
Yeah, I guess he turned heel the week prior to WrestleMania or to Survivor Series. I didn't see him turn heel. I didn't watch it, but I read about it. And then he came out and fought Brock. And I was wondering if they did that to get Brock over or try to get him like a pop. It didn't do anything. I mean, Brock was still Brock. And then the match was like 5 minutes long, maybe a little bit more. And I blinked, it was over. And I'm like, okay, well, that was anticlimactic. What next? And that was the end. All of a sudden, they rolled the credits, and I was like, wait, no, there's no way. There was nothing. There was no decision, like no decisiveness to any storyline that I saw at all. And I just think that's where they have such a problem with conclusions. And they used to have such a great way to do it. I mean, they used to conclude in the ring, and they used to conclude with finite situations where they said to you, you're losing. Now it's like no one can lose. They can get disqualified.
Booking and all that.
Yeah, someone has to come in and attack them or whatever. It's always got to be like a mistake or no. How about I hit the finisher and you're done? It's over.
Yeah. It's, and I think they've kind of ruined Lesnar as well a little bit. Like, I mean, I personally have always kind of like been a fan of how they booked Lesnar. Like I like the whole like beast mentality, him destroying everything, and that I think they kind of ruined that in trying to get Roman Reigns over. But
yeah, well, they ruined it when they had Goldberg come and squash him.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, Goldberg that's freaking Goldberg, man. I mean, a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia with Goldberg.
Yeah, that was fun. Actually, I think that was a good use of the Beast image to get Goldberg over, make that moment. That was a special moment. But you're right.
If you look at it in history, like Goldberg and Lesnar were kind of like equal. They were kind of like, it was like the whole like, immovable objects or meets the unstoppable or you know what I'm talking about. Like, and so the
Hogan versus Yokozuna, the Andre the Giant versus Hogan.
Exactly, and so they've always been kind of on equal footing, so it's still believable. And then, plus, I mean, the fact is, like Goldberg couldn't go more than like probably like a 60-second match anyways because he'd get winded, and he's old. That's not his own fault. But although during WrestleMania, he went like at least 5 or 10 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good match too.
But I think by that time he had time to work up cardio. And, so yeah, but I mean, fact is their storylines are just ass at this point. And they need to get someone in there like Vince Russo. Like, I still listen to his podcast and stuff, and like that guy some of his storylines are insane, but I'd rather have that than just the same still crap. Because right now they hire TV writers as their main writers, and I just don't think that translates well.
Well, it's gone from being the sports. I guess they called it a sport before they called it sports entertainment. But in the 30-something years I've been watching this stuff, I've seen many different transitions. And when they went into the Attitude Era, I think that was the best time to be to be a fan. Because not only did you have the Attitude Era with the WWE, but you had WCW. This was before they bought them. You had WCW competing, and you had storylines that crossed over. I mean, like before NWO, there wasn't a ton of fun, but then they were like, you know what? We're going to buy these guys. We're going to make something happen. And then you had like, I remember watching Ravishing Rick Rude on Raw.
Oh yeah.
And then it was like taped or something. And then the next day, maybe it's backwards. He was on Nitro the next day or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he came on and he said, what a difference a day makes. Or maybe it was the same day or something crazy. Like he was on the same show because one was taped and one wasn't. And he had like left. So
and
exact
details. WCW took advantage of that too. They would,
yeah, they did.
They would televise what happened on WWE.
Yeah, it was awesome to see that kind of war going on. And it was real too. Those are legit. These people, if people don't understand, like back in the day, before wrestling was big on TV, it was localized. So you had all these regions across the country. And like, Bret Hart, for example, was up there in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And, he had his Stu Hart, his father ran that federation up there or whatever they called it. But they would get local guys to build up, and then they would create events in that local region. And Bret Hart didn't travel down to Texas to wrestle. He stayed up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And so they got well known in Calgary. But a lot of those guys that were in the Lion's Den or whatever they call it, those guys came to WWE later on because it was like they were all good. And then Vince McMahon's father started buying up all these Northeast promotions and then taking over and creeping in. And then you had like NWA was one of the ones that said, no way, you're not buying us. WCW was another one, no way. And they started buying up the ones around them and getting bigger. So at the beginning of all this, you had a couple of big ones, a couple of big organizations all vying for these territories and a consolidation, just like any big business like Walmart coming in, taking up the mom and pop shops, until eventually you had that big epic night where Vince showed up on Nitro, or Shane showed up on Nitro to buy Nitro WCW, and it was just like unreal as a 18-year-old kid watching that, seeing that happen live. We're like, holy shit!
That was on the last episode, right? Where, goodness, it was who was the champ at the time? It was they had just put it on
or Diamond Dallas Page.
Diamond Dallas Page, and then I'll think of it here in a second. But yeah.
Oh, Booker T. Yeah,
Booker T. Yeah, that's it.
That's right, because he was getting that big push, and then WWE came in and bought WCW, and I was like, man, that sucks for him. He's been fighting all year, and now it's over. And then they brought him over, and the belt got taken off him. He didn't even lose it.
Yeah, so I mean, that was a pretty exciting time, though.
Yeah, Vince Russo had some crazy stuff, huh?
Yeah. I mean, that's where you got Val Venus and all that. Like, I mean, I don't think you get away with much of that anymore. But
it's funny you mention him and people like Papa Shango, and I mean, these were all people who came in. They had some presence. They won some matches, but they were glorified jobbers. You know, I know Val Venus won the Intercontinental title, and then what's his name? Papa Shango became the Godfather and did his thing, and they had runs, but they were like, Val Venus was never going to be the world heavyweight champion, and he had his moment, he had his fun airtime, but he was there to propel others too, you know, like to build a storyline to get somebody else. And if he took off and became something special, they would run with it if he was capable, but he was something like him. He wasn't. Now, another funny story is the Al Snow story.
I was getting ready to mention him,
yeah, he was like a legendary jobber all throughout his career. And then he was in a couple tag teams, did a couple things, but nothing special, nothing super special, but he was always around. And then he joined ECW, and he went and had this gimmick. And I will never forget this, man. My brother and I and a couple of friends, we went 2 nights in a row. And the first night, I mean, if you went to an ECW show back in the day, not when it was WWE's version of ECW, but the real one, people steal chairs and they'd sign them and hit each other in the head with them. They would take cheese graters out of the stands and them on their opponents and make them bleed. Like, they were really in it to win it. They wanted those fans to leave. And
I remember that ECW, like the old school ECW.
Yeah, like, I mean, New Jack would like literally took a fork into someone's skull and put him in the hospital.
Yeah,
stabbed a guy 14 times in the ring because the guy pushed him or something. Like, it was a real deal. So this one particular night, Al Snow, he wasn't over or anything, and he came out to a kind of a mediocre crowd situation, and one of the fans had a styrofoam head, just a standard styrofoam head, and he would grab stuff out of the audience and use it in the ring. So he took the styrofoam head, and he was standing in the ring, and the crowd was cheering because he was like looking at it maniacally. He had never done this before, and then he held it up because the crowd was chanting head, head, head. Like, we just did that. I was there with that, and because it was a funny thing to chant. Yeah, I mean, I helped create that, and so. He holds the head up, the crowd goes nuts, and he kind of giggles to himself. I mean, you could see it because there's no cameras and shit. It was just back then it was, you know, dark matches. So he did it again, and the crowd went nuts, and then he used it to finish the guy off. We came back the next night, and he had that same styrofoam head with him, and he did it again, and the rest is history. That guy went on, because of that stupid styrofoam head, ended up getting his job back in the WWE, and I think he teamed up with Mankind, didn't he?
He did. He was a Mankind. I think he had a little stint with Gangrel. Like,
Yeah.
all those,
Yeah,
man. It brings up a lot of
success.
nostalgia thinking about those guys.
But it's like, it's funny how something simple, but that was pure. Like there was no Vince Russo writing, hey, then grab that styrofoam head and hold it up because everyone. No, ECW conjured real fun emotions. Real, like The Rock would get out there. I know a lot of his stuff was scripted. Same with Kurt Angle. They had a lot of memorization that they had to do, but it was the delivery. They were able to get out there and do it. You know,
Yeah.
Steve Blackman couldn't go out and do what Kurt Angle did, and
No.
they probably tried with him. You know, but
Funny too with Kurt Angle. Like, he annoyed the hell out of me when I was young, but now when I go back and I appreciate, like, he's such a good heel though. Just
oh yeah,
drawing heat, and I didn't realize that until I got older. And that's one thing I hate watching too is freaking is watching him now. Like,
yep.
Kurt Angle now, he looks like the old Kurt Angle got lobotomized. Just the way he talks is just I think that's one of the main reasons I stopped watching. Actually, was seeing Kurt Angle on TV just depressed the hell out of me.
Oh my god, yeah. Well, these days, yeah, he doesn't look too good. Hey, did you know that King of the Ring has been around since 1985? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it used to be a really big deal, I think, back in like the 80s and 90s. Like,
Yeah, you had Don Morocco, Harley Race. That's right. That's why he was King Harley Race. Okay, and then Randy was the king. That's when Randy became Macho King.
Yep, it used to be like a huge pillar pay-per-view, from what I understand. And then
DiBiase, Santana, Bret Hart. When Owen won the King of the Ring, I laughed so hard. He became my favorite wrestler when he won the King of the Ring. And then he started coming out with the fucking chalice and all that stuff. I mean, that was the best.
Yeah.
And then Mabel was King Mabel, Stone Cold, Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Which one was the one that maybe it was that one, Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I thought it was it was Kurt. It was, maybe I went to 2 King of the Rings. Let me see. King of the Ring 2000. Kind of a sad but funny story. I was dating this girl in college, and we had tickets to go to the King of the Ring at the Fleet Center in Boston, and she waited till after that event to dump me. So like, we went and I watched it and everything, and it wasn't the same day, but it was like I could tell something was up.
I mean, that sucks for you, but I mean, at least she got what she was after, I guess.
Yeah, I know. Things worked out, I think, pretty well.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, I'll tell you, I could talk wrestling all night. I know that's not the only thing we wanted to get into today, but it's funny too, because you see the same things, like the successful stuff that happened in wrestling. You see Dana White and WDW or UFC pulling some of the same shit, and money is capitalizing everything everywhere, which sucks sometimes because you just want pure product. But instead, they're like, oh, Conor McGregor, who I love Conor McGregor. I love watching him fight. I love what he does. But at the same time, the guy threw a trash can through a bus window and put glass in people's eyes. Didn't get in trouble, really. And then got rewarded by making hundreds of millions of dollars afterwards. You know, it's like that assault. And if I did that, I'd still be sitting in jail. Probably wouldn't even have my trial by now. But not only that, it's like these storylines they're building storylines as opposed to using real hatred or real animosity or real whatever. Every once in a while, you'll see a real storyline come out, like TJ Dillashaw and the fact that he left the camp that he was in and went with Dwayne Ludwig, and you have real hatred there. And these guys that are fighting really don't like each other. But then it's like conjured hatred. Like, let's come up with a reason. Let's put these two together and have them talk smack online and this and that. It's just bullshit. Yeah. And then they fill up these cards with half-ass people to get other people over. You know, you're putting the bookings are just kind of awkward, and there's no reason to watch any specific event anymore. I mean, UFC 200 was good, and every once in a while there's a really good stacked card, but I can't imagine paying for any of that. I just can't.
The last pay-per-view I paid for was, I think you were here actually. I'm not sure. Yeah, might have been. I can't remember the last one I paid. Well, I didn't even pay for the.
Exactly. I mean,
I paid for the boxing match, the McGregor boxing.
Yeah, Floyd Mayweather, and just to see the spectacle. I mean, you weren't interested in all the fights before it, right?
No, not at all. I actually tried. I tried watching it. I was like, I'm going to try to develop a respect for sport, but I just couldn't get into it. It's just too technical the way like the scoring works compared to what I'm used to. I think that's what screwed up. Well, we could go into what screwed up McGregor. I could spend all night talking about that, but yeah.
Seriously, me too. But you know what? Actually, I'm going to defer here to my cousins. Ricky and Buddy started a podcast, and it's an MMA podcast called MMA Marks. You can find them, I think, just by searching the primary places, like Google Play and all that. I think that they've rolled out to those different places right now, iTunes and whatnot. But also you can find them on Anchor FM. So if you go to anchor.fm and you search MMA Marks, you'll be able to find them. They're on Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. They have a pretty good podcast. They got a couple episodes in. And these guys are really well versed in MMA history, MMA current day, the fighters, what their styles are. So when they talk about it, it's passionate. They know what they're talking about. It's not just like on the cuff. Like I'm off the cuff with a lot of this stuff because I don't have the time to dive in and watch every game of football and know every player on the team and every MMA fighter. But these guys know all of it. Like pretty much, there's very few fighters that come along that they don't know a little bit about. So it's good to listen to. So if you're interested in an MMA talk, look up MMA Marks, and they got some natural talent with talking about it and stuff. So I've listened to both episodes so far, and it's pretty good. So I recommend it. I'm going to get them on the podcast in maybe next week or the week after or something, and have them do their spiel and talk a little bit. And I have to challenge them on a couple of things because my cousin Ricky's a big fan of Jose Aldo, and I'm a fan of Jose Aldo as well in the sense of I like watching him fight, but to call him your favorite these days, I don't know. I see a different thing going on there.
People have different reasons for calling someone a favorite. No,
he's my cousin.
Aside from just stats, but then again, I'll definitely have to check it out because listening to like something like that will, like, if I can understand the history of the sport, I could probably get into it more. But
yeah, their last podcast was actually pretty good. They talked a lot about the best knockouts, and it's funny because I went on their Facebook and I was just thinking off the top of my head, I can't think of one. I can think of like 7 or 8 that were in my Rolodex in my brain, and I put them all out there. And then I was listening to their podcast, and just about all the ones. And their podcast was recorded before I posted this, by the way, so they didn't cheat off my test or anything. And all the ones that they talked about were the ones that I thought of. So I thought it was pretty interesting. I mean, you got some key recently. There was a Francis Ngannou knocked out Alistair Overeem, 2 big dudes, and the uppercut from hell sent Overeem to heaven. I mean, it was like he lifted this 250-something pound man off his feet. It was nuts. Knocked him out cold. The millisecond that fist hit that guy's face, he was out on his feet. So his head whipped back. He fell like a ton of bricks. It was like a Street Fighter / movie knockout, not a MMA knockout. Yeah. And then, you got the Dan Henderson one where he knocked out Bisping, jumped across the ring and punched him again afterwards for insult to injury.
Yeah.
And one other thing I got to say about UFC, and I just read this yesterday, is I don't know if you know who Sage Northcutt is, but
I don't, but I can find out real quick.
Yeah, Google him because you might recognize him. He's this up-and-comer, one of the younger guys. I mean, he started at UFC at 19, I think. He's been there a couple of years now, so he's in his early 20s. He's won his last 3 fights. Now, when he joined, it looked like Dana White wanted to give this guy a title the second he was in the UFC. He was doing backflips and front flips in the ring, super charismatic, a little awkward. Like, he comes from a very religious family. Not that that's awkward.
Like some dude from some YouTube video series my daughter watched.
Exactly. He looks like Zach. No, he looks like Zach from
Saved by the Bell?
Saved by the Bell. Yeah, he looks like Zach from Saved by the Bell with steroids. Like, he looks ripped and everything.
But he does have a very threatening face, though. I don't see
No, not at all. But he is a killer when he gets in there. And now he's had a couple of challenges in the ring, and he obviously needs to grow. I mean, he's still super young, but he also has really good skill sets that he's utilized and won some matches with. Well, out of nowhere, Dana White let him go, like didn't re-sign him. And this is the kind of shit that I just find funny. Like you have a guy who people are going to tune in to watch him, and people are going to like look for this guy, and he's got some decent skill. Why don't you grow him? You know, like Dana's afraid of growing talent or letting talent look like it's okay if he loses today. He's 19, 20 years old, you know, but build a story around him, a real one. So maybe there's some backstage stuff, but pay the guy if he's worth it. Pay him.
I mean, I think Dana's in a good situation where he can just kind of like pick out these guys and just let the storylines develop themselves. He can kind of like flame the fire a little bit, but you know, he's got no reason to be paranoid. All he can do is just profit off of it.
Yeah, and that's where he's at. I used to feel like he was good for the sport because he had a very wild style, but now you got this wild style mixed in with billionaires who are trying to control a narrative, and he lies more than anyone I've ever seen, and it's so frustrating because when he goes and does a press conference, he'll sit there and talk, and he'll talk shit about his own fighters who just spent, you know, their blood, sweat, and tears to fight, and he's like questioning their morality, questioning their ethics, while they're still recuperating from like a broken eye socket or something, and like he's over here with $1 billion talking trash, and I just hate it. And then he defends someone like Conor for doing what he did, or not defends him, but doesn't do shit about it. You know, if one guy will come over and do something bad, he fires him, right? Conor goes and does something bad. He says, "I'm going to leave it up to the commission. I'm going to let his punishment. He's going. Trust me, the police are dealing with Conor." Yeah, well, guess what, dude? Conor's walking the fucking streets. Okay, if I did the same thing, I wouldn't be. So.
Well, I mean, I tell you what, what Dana White could do is he could pull Vince and start taking steroids, and then have some young rebel get pissed off at him and challenge him in the octagon, and then.
Funny you say that because Tito Ortiz just fought Chuck Liddell in a really disgusting fight. I mean, Chuck Liddell could barely walk, man. This is a history right here in the making. Chuck and Tito fought twice before, like over 10 years ago in the UFC was their last fight, probably 15 years ago now. And Chuck beat Tito both times, but both of them had legacy careers, you know, like really, really good careers where they were very famous. Chuck didn't go out on the best note, and it seemed like he always wanted to come back. One of the other things, too, with Chuck is when he was on his downfall or his final years, they were making tons of money. There was a couple people coming in every once in a while, but he was there before people were making millions, you know. So when he fought Tito Ortiz they fought the other day, they both made more money than this is what I read, they made more money than his entire career combined in one fight. And he looked like shit. His punches looked like they were slow motion underwater. Like he was so slow. They had nothing on him. Tito wasn't phased by very much of anything, and then Tito knocked him out with like one good punch. And Chuck looked bad, but he's 48 years old. I mean, what do you expect? He looked good
I mean, same thing with CM Punk. I mean, the guy's like 42, and you know, it doesn't matter how much he trains if you don't have that reflex speed. You know.
Yeah, your body it deteriorates. I mean, I'm 38. I feel I couldn't even imagine going through what they go through. Well, back in the day, Tito Ortiz. Well, actually, Dana White was Chuck Liddell's manager before UFC. And then that's when Chuck and Dana were together in UFC. And so Dana and Chuck are friends in real life. I don't know if they still are. I imagine they are. But back in the day, they were like best friends. And Chuck and Tito truly hated each other in real life. Like truly, truly, truly. Well,
like not a word.
And Tito is very good at being an asshole. He's like The Rock, but you know, The Rock is joking and Tito is not joking. Tito is the guy. He's a douchebag. He's a prick. He flips the fans off. He's just got that punchable face and blah, blah, blah. Well, the rest is history here. They got into it and he fucked with Dana White so bad that Dana White challenged him to a boxing match because he challenged Dana and Dana accepted. And Dana had somewhat of a boxing background, so he was going to do it. And then as it came up a couple weeks prior to it or a couple months prior to it, he just quit. He said he wasn't going to do it. So then Tito got to call him a bitch and everything, and you chickened out. But they were really, I mean, it seemed like it was real. And then he probably got to his senses and thought, well, what if I get knocked the fuck out like by this guy I hate? It wouldn't be good. So instead, he made him fight Chuck and get his ass kicked, and he got beat a couple more times, and he beat a couple people. He won the belt. He did his thing. They both, like I said, Chuck and Tito both had storied careers. I don't blame Chuck for coming back and taking the money fight, but I wouldn't want to watch him ever again unless it's to see him get killed in the ring, and I don't want to see that. So, he's just an old man. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, like, you know, having him take the roids, because he, like I said, this was back when roids were rampant too, and Dana definitely did them at one point. He was doing HGH or something because he got huge.
Oh, right. I never seen Dana back in the day, so I'll have to check it out.
He was skinnier than me when I was 17. He was tiny. Actually, if you just Google a Dana White first appearance, you're gonna laugh because he looked like a kid.
I'll do that right now. But you got me thinking about like for like WrestleMania, and even, well, like for example, like WrestleMania when that season comes up around like April, right? We could do some kind of podcast or something where we review all the WrestleMania
reviews of the matches and everything. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it'll take some time, probably like 6 hours total. We have to like space it out, but it'd be fun to do.
That'd be great. We could do a series. And I have another buddy who's, I think he's gone to dozens of WrestleManias. He's so versed in wrestling. Like, he's been watching it for 40 something years. You know, I would like to get take two and hear what he's got to say about some of the stuff, because he could probably go back to he's got like the Rolodex of tickets, and he can pull them out and say,
oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what he had to say.
I am calling it right now. And I think as we talk, and I have you on here, we'll talk about it more, because Joe doesn't watch too much wrestling at all by any means, but I'm calling let's do a thing of like, if you could have what you wanted to get you back into wrestling, like, what would it be? So I'm going to start, and then I want to hear from your side. Now, I'm going to start with a little bit of bias, but all right. I think that the War Raiders are. I was a fan of wrestling back when Legion of Doom and Demolition and Powers of Pain and the Barbarian and the Warlord. Who else did you have? Money Inc. You had all these tag teams. Tag teams were like huge, and it was important to run the tag division. It meant something, and you had these beasts come along like Legion of Doom or the like Demolition or whatever, and they were like unstoppable forces meeting each other, and it was like big dudes, and they didn't have to talk. There was it was just a quick 1 minute intro or interview of, I'm gonna come kick your ass, and they do their thing. And then they got away from that, and then it was like Johnny and Tony versus Tom and Bob. Like, the teams are no longer like, it's Kane and Buddy Holly. Like, shit started getting really weird, where tag teams were no longer a team. It was like just throwing two people together because they wanted to get more airtime for everybody. So now you have, and I gotta Google it real quick because NXT tag champs. I hate the fact that I can't remember their names, but the stable over there. So you have the.
Yeah, I don't feel bad. That's just that just goes to say about the quality of the product.
Yeah. Okay. The Undisputed Era. Okay. Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly. So they're a tag team now in Ring of Honor. Kyle O'Reilly teamed up with one of the other. Okay, so Bobby Fish. So in Ring of Honor, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly were a tag team, Red Dragon or whatever they were called, and they were a pretty good tag team over there. They held the belts for a while, and then so Rowan Hansen, the War Raiders, when they were over in NXT, they were War Machine, and they feuded and did their thing. Well, now over here in NXT, they built a stable. You have Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong, and they're a very good team. Like, their karma and their mojo and all that stuff, it works together. They're funny. They're the assholes who laugh at you when they win and this and that. And they're playing the heels, but they're not trying to get cheers. They're just trying to get attention. You know, they're not trying to be the Stone Cold. They're trying to be the heels. They're doing a good job of it. They got the belts. I think they have a bunch of belts amongst them. They have a great name, the Undisputed Era. I think that's an awesome name for their team. And here you have a group of, they got the belts. They're ready for prime time. They don't need to be in NXT. And I think you take this feud from the War Raiders. Now they just had those four guys, the Undisputed Era, just went against the War Raiders and Ricochet and Pete Dunne, who I think Pete Dunne is now in the WWE. He's no longer in NXT because he's the WWE European champion, as opposed to, but he still wrestles in NXT every once in a while. So you have these 8 guys. Now I'm not a big fan of Pete Dunne like everyone else is. I don't know him well enough to be like hyped about him, but Ricochet is Rey Mysterio 10.0. Like he is way better than Rey Mysterio ever was. And Rey Mysterio was awesome. So I'm not trying to take anything away from Rey Mysterio, but Ricochet is this young kid who can do phenomenal things. And he's got a decent feud going with the Undisputed Era doing his thing. And they just built this matchup really well. I think you take this story into WrestleMania and you let these guys get promoted to the big roster. You don't need to finish it in NXT. You build it, and I think you take the War Raiders, and I think you put them at the top of the WWE tag division, and you have them come in and destroy everybody and just be that dominant force for some time. Because, look, you have the Wyatt brothers, what are they called now? The guys with the beards. You have a couple of teams.
Yeah, I don't know what they rebranded as, but yeah.
The Bludgeon Brothers, and everyone knows who they are. You have a couple of teams that are there, but like there's no dominant tag team force that you just don't fuck with. And the Raiders are them. They're the modern day Vikings. They got the look, they got the outfits, they got the music. And
no, I agree with you. That'd be, you saying do the conversion at WrestleMania or kind of build it up?
Like build the match and put those NXT guys, that tag match on WrestleMania. Put Ricochet on the main card. I mean, straight from NXT.
On the main card, not on the pre-show and not on NXT.
Correct.
Show.
Yeah, I'm saying like convert them to WWE superstars on WrestleMania.
Yeah, if they had the balls there, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and I'm saying both of the, like that whole group, Undisputed Era, needs to go to the main show. They're good. Ricochet needs to be. And now NXT is great for these guys because, again, they're hungry. They're going to push themselves. They're going to do some crazy things. But they're capable of turning that roster into something to watch on the main card. And so put them there before it's too late. Put them there before you decide to change storylines and make the War Raiders jobbers. And put them there before you got Heavy Machinery NXT who are a bunch of big dudes, right? But what are they now? They're just fat jobbers as opposed to a machine, like a team that you have to be afraid of.
Yeah.
Bring the War Raiders there, have them demolish the tag teams and say, no one's going to fuck with us. I'm taking the belts and you're not going to get them for a long friggin' time. You're going to have to kill us to. Also, bring Ricochet. They're a good, I guess in real life, they're friends too. They've kind of worked the ranks. Bring Ricochet over. He's a good mouth. Like he's got the look and the voice. Make a stable out of it. You know what I mean? Like they don't have to come out every time together, but why not, right? Put them together, make a stable, get another guy in there and give him the look. Make Ricochet like this high-flying, crazy maniac dude who's capable of winning the world title or the cruiserweight title. And you got the War Raiders there, the big dudes who keep the other guys off of Ricochet's back. You know, they're good force. So anyways, again, I know they're my friend. Todd's my buddy, but I see that. Yeah. I say Demolition Man. Those were the guys. Like Legion of Doom. To this day, you could not replicate Legion of Doom.
Yeah, and I owe it to you and to them to watch NXT more and actually get familiar. So I'll make that already.
Pre-taped and stuff, so you can kind of find out what is going to be where before it's there. So
yeah,
and there's another Velveteen Dream is another guy to watch. Thomas Ciampa is another guy to watch. That all these guys are ready for the main stage. They need to kind of flush the roster. Take some of those guys like Heath Slater and Rhino and these guys that are on the TV all the time that don't do shit. Take them off that. I hate to say that about some people's careers, but bring them down to NXT, develop them a little bit, change their gimmick. I mean, that's what they used to do, right? Papa Shango wasn't working. Make him the Godfather. Yeah. Do something different. Everyone's just their name now. It doesn't really work.
I completely agree. And yeah,
But look, you have Hanson and Rowe and Ricochet, and they're up and comers that people are like interested in. If Ricochet went by his real name, like whatever his name, Ricky O'Shea or whatever, it's like that's not the same thing. But he's Ricochet. So
yeah. Well, yeah, that's yeah. I mean, I think so. You're basically saying not just from the aspect of having that team be dominant, but are you saying like just having more dominance on the roster as as it
yes,
stands?
more dominance. Like I said, Undisputed Era is dominant too. Bring them over, let them be dominant. Let a couple of new fish be the big fish. Get rid of some of the smaller fish that don't need to be there anymore. That everybody knows is just a filler. And even if someone like Heath Slater came and kicked some ass for a couple of weeks, you know he doesn't have it right now to be the world champ. And you're kind of like, let him go down and develop a little bit more. Change his gimmick, change his style. Bring him back when he's ready. That's what NXT should be for. But now you have superstars that are down in NXT that sit there for a while. Kairi Singh just came over, I think. She's in SmackDown now. And then you got what's the Asuka?
Asuka, yeah.
She's awesome. They can build some awesome stars in NXT, but get them over there while they're hot. Make something out of them. And I'm saying put Undisputed Era versus War Raiders on WrestleMania main card, and you'll see a lot of people will be like, "Who are these guys? This is awesome. This is good stuff." So,
yeah.
What is your hook? What would you need to see? Or the things that you would need to see to get back into the point where you're watching every Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and pay-per-view?
Well, watching, like, I'll start watching now and watching with enthusiasm and two entirely different things. But I'd say, like, for me to get really, really, like, get enthusiastic about it, there's a number of things, and chief among them is, like, right now I feel like the shows are just overproduced. That, like, anytime there's any backstage segments or anything like that, like the camera angles just don't look legitimate. Everything just looks like
40 smash cuts per second.
Yeah, well, like
once they cut the camera, I hate that.
Exactly, and the lighting is a huge factor. Like I think that's one of the big distractors these days is that there's everything's just too bright, and the colors are too bright, and it doesn't have that grit. I mean, these are people is beating the shit out of each other. Like it doesn't need to be look like cartoony and look it needs to have kind of a gritty feel to it, and that's why I think a lot of people say like they can actually get away with a lot keeping it PG, but I really think taking it up a notch and put it as TV 14 will work in their favor. Because I just think like when I was a kid, like when I was like just going into middle school back like early mid 90s, like wrestling was kind of it wasn't a cool thing until the Attitude Era, and it got like adult and serious, and then it was a cool thing to watch.
When you watch wrestling, yeah, you're right.
And now like it's all kiddie, and kids probably make fun of other kids that watch it like when they start getting to like upper middle school and high school.
Well, now it's Fortnite and this and that. It's people aren't talking about being like John Cena. John Cena's in Minecraft. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, part of that too is just TV. Like people rather like play Fortnite and all that. But I think they could still get that hook in. Like people still doing into certain things that has that hook, and they just have to get creative, and they've got the money to hire that kind of creativity, like hire Vince Russo 2.0.
I think NXT gets to go a little bit more. And I know you were going to say earlier that Triple H books NXT and stuff. I don't think he's literally writing the storylines personally, but maybe he is. Maybe he's got the influence. Maybe I do like some of the stuff he's doing, but in NXT they get to be a little bit more riskier. You see a little bit more risque type of action, the type of stuff that's happening there.
I mean, the thing with Triple H too is that a lot of this stuff is I don't know where to believe like what's rumor, because you hear all these rumors that him and Vince are constantly at odds with each other, and then it's just like I don't know what to think.
I know the facts. I know the facts from when I was younger. And the facts are Triple H came from the town next door where I grew up, and he was dating China in real life. They went to the same gym. They were friends. They were dating. They made their way up the ranks. They went to the WWF at the time, and he ditched that bitch because he didn't like her, and he went on to bigger and better things. And now he's a mega millionaire. That was his girlfriend, and like through storyline. ditched her and married Stephanie in real life. Like that's the Triple H in my mind that I know. And she went on to do porn with one of his best friends. You know, like that he.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what all else was going on. I mean, I'm not trying to advocate for the guy, but you never know what like other stuff was going on the side if they had issues.
Hey! I was a Bret Hart. I was a Hart Foundation fan, and I hated anything that had to do with Shawn Michaels. I hated that man so much that true story. And this is a lot of people are gonna like frown at me for this. I did not do this, by the way, but we went to an event, and I swore to my brother. I said I'm gonna piss in a cup and pour it on Shawn Michaels because we were in the fourth row. Now I didn't do it, and I would never have done it. But I was like, that's how much I hated that guy because of.
But
what
you
he
liked Bret Hart.
I loved Bret Hart, man.
See, that's the thing is you got your Bret Hart camp, you got your Shawn Michaels camp. Like, it seems like people always split between those two.
But I was more about a realist. Like Bret Hart came to the ring. He always did his stuff. When you went to house shows, Shawn Michaels wasn't there. But when you went to house shows, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, they were there. British Bulldog, he was there. You know, the Hart Foundation, that core Stu Hart mentality was there. You put in the time no matter what. Shawn Michaels was one of those big time prima donnas who's like, I don't have to do the house shows. I don't have to do this and that. Meanwhile, Bret Hart was defending the World Heavyweight Championship at frickin' house shows back in 1996, like it was his job. And you don't see Brock Lesnar showing up to house shows. You don't see any of that shit anymore. These guys are too big for that. And so,
plus they get paid. It's in the contract too. I mean, if you got a family, you know, you'd be an idiot not to take a contract like what Lesnar has. Like, it's like, someone's going to offer that money.
But like in a world where everybody knows what's going on, like we know as fans that this guy's just being given the chance because of his look and his size and whatnot. If it, Yokozuna was mysterious. We all thought he was Japanese. The guy's Polynesian and The Rock's cousin, but he's billed as the Japanese sumo wrestler dude. You know, it's like they used to make mysterious stuff happen because we couldn't just Google it and find out who they were. It wasn't until we realized, that's Isaac Yankem behind that mask. You know, Kane. It's like we had to figure that shit out on our own. Yeah.
Nah, and so get back to my ideas. So there's that, and then obviously merging the brand, like getting rid of the whole Raw and SmackDown, like separate rosters. I think that's certain right now. And then just it's talking specific wrestlers, like what I would nerd out for, like I'd
who do you want to see?
All the old guys. I don't want to see Stone Cold back in the ring. Like that's just I asked me 5-10 years ago. Yeah, but I think that'd just be sad right now. I think the guy would just kind of stumble out there. Yeah. And so
I'll take him on the mic any day, though. I'd take Stone Cold on the mic and The Rock on the mic until they're dead. Any day of the week.
Well, The Rock can still go, but Stone Cold's had a lot of knee issues, and so it's kind of affected him. But as far as like who I would mark out for, like obviously CM Punk, like, and I wasn't even the biggest fan of his when he was big, but I just think he just brings a certain element that no other wrestler really brings. So I think he'd be a huge benefit to the roster. I mean, that probably never happened, but then, I don't know. I'm just not invested in the current roster right now. It's just how it is.
So like, let me name some people that I'm familiar with, like Randy Orton. Okay. Is there anything that they could do with Randy Orton to make you go nuts about what he's got going on?
Yeah, they could take him back to his Legend Killer gimmick and have him like legitimately kind of. I mean, again, this goes back to them changing up the storylines and them kind of getting a little bit edgier, but having him like legit like injure people. Like at least you think he's legit injuring people.
Yeah.
And like go to kill and go back. I mean, they're not going to bring back his where he would do the head punt. You remember that? But he.
But why not? Right? I mean, like.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely ways. Like Randy Orton has a lot of talent, and he could be interesting. They just Not in the current environment though, and he damn
So
sure never needs face.
no, yeah, he's so good as a heel, and he's funny. He's charismatic. I think he's like. I'm surprised to this day that he's not one of the head faces. Like I would have thought 10 years ago that 10 years later he would be in the spotlight like The Rock was. Honestly.
Yeah, and that's just. I mean, part of it is I know he had some issues with like some behavioral issues with in the backstage and all that. But I think he's since.
Well, why though, right? Like think about this for a second, because it's funny you say that. Someone like that who obviously came from wrestling family, right? His dad, Billy Bob Orton, or whatever. So
Yeah,
why
not Billy Bob Orton, but Billy. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Billy Bob
Yeah.
Orton, Bob Orton, Bob Orton? So like,
Yeah.
why though? Like what? See, you never know. Like, yeah, he had backstage issues, but maybe it's because he was getting pushed and people didn't like it. So like someone
Well,
like
he was young too. Like he came into business. Like I think he was the youngest WWE champion when he became WWE champion. So, I mean, a lot of that's the issue too. I think that's the same thing with Paige. Is she came in. They wouldn't even like move her in from NXT until she became like I think 21 or 20 or something like that. Like she like these guys and girls, they come in too young and they just don't. They're going to be immature.
Okay, so let's see. Bobby Lashley. Do you see anything happening with him that's going to matter?
I saw him on back when I used to like just have TNA on just in the background just because it was so bad it was funny. But he can make a good heel if he's given the latitude to do it. Like he needs to be able to be extremely cocky. And
he's got no mic skills. He needs to be an enforcer type.
Well, he's actually not that bad on the mic if he's not speaking from a script. If he goes unscripted, he's not that bad. Like I urge you, like look up some of his stuff from TNA back when he was champion. He's not that bad.
So I like Bobby Roode, and I don't know if part of it is because I was a huge Rick Rude fan. And I know this is his son, but like he's got I love his song. I love the gimmick that he's got going on.
Well, you know who else loves Rude?
Who's that?
Bobby Roode. Triple H. So
does he? Well,
yeah.
I mean,
so
nothing really happens with him. He gets passed around and this and that. I mean, I'd love to see. They need to have people to compete with Brock. They need to have people move up and be like in that, like there needs to be 4 or 5 guys that could be vying for the title. It's always just one. It's always 1 or 2.
So it needs to be organic too. Like it can't just
exactly.
Like,
yeah, it needs to be like a couple of guys like Finn. I know Finn Balor's always pushing it and everything. But like a couple of guys that are fighting. You have like Seth Rollins, who's awesome. He's really good. He's but he's trying to make the Intercontinental title the World Championship, which is awesome. I think it's a great idea to like make those matches seem more important than the heavyweight championship. And I think that's just wrestling saying, you know what, fuck the fact that they're trying to keep this belt on Brock for no reason forever.
Yeah, Cena did that with the U.S. title, I think, for a while there, right before you started watching again. Like he had the weekly challenge where he would challenge people. Anyone could step up.
He's not going to go bad, but is there anything Cena can do to make you want to watch him?
Cena? Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to go bad. He just has to be like, I don't know. He just has to kind of go gray, not like he kind of did it a little bit with the Rock, not the Rock, but right before that, I can't think of who it was with, but kind of like where you think he's gonna go heel, but like that kind of like, is he gonna, and they have the opportunity to do it now with the what is it, 16th with the record. So he could go crazy just trying to get the record. Maybe not go heel, but just kind of go a little bit heel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Oh, one of the funny things. Did you know that, you probably did, but Bo Dallas and what's his name? Bray Wyatt are brothers?
No, I didn't. Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt?
Yep, they're brothers. And do you know who their dad is?
No.
Mike Rotunda, Erwin R. Shyster, attorney at law.
Really?
Yeah. But instead of going off of that, instead of feeding off of that gimmick, and instead of utilizing something that could make you care about these guys. Now, okay, Wyatt family was pretty good. I think for a stable, they did a good thing with that. It was worth watching. It pulled people in, I think. And I didn't really understand the Wyatts because they didn't do much with them. It was like Bray always just kind of won but lost at the last second.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they had a force with that stable. I think that was good. But they just didn't do it. I don't know. They kind of dissolved and.
Well, they kind of really ruined like Wyatt. Anyways, they didn't let him get wins when he needed to.
Yeah, and then they had him. He's with Matt Hardy. All that's weird stuff, and it's just like, I don't know. That's the kind of stuff that makes me turn the channel. Other people love it, so I don't blame them from pushing it. But
yeah,
Drew McIntyre, he's a badass looking dude who has some charisma. But I would have put him with someone like instead of he's with Dolph Ziggler. I would have put Drew McIntyre with someone like, what was the guy that used to manage the Legion of Doom?
Like back in the day.
Yeah, that guy that used to come out on the motorcycle with them and all that.
Jeez, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the guy's name.
Instead of giving him Dolph Ziggler, give him a manager, like a sinister manager or something, and make this guy like a fucking Kane type, machine. And he's got the look, but instead he's just Drew McIntyre. Like, yeah, why can't he have a gimmick?
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's funny you mentioned that because Kane used to be like back in Attitude Era, one of my favorite wrestlers. Like, the whole like pyro going on. I know he didn't say much and all that, but the whole just like mystery behind him. And
you don't have to put him in a costume, but you can. I mean, he's got the look and everything, but like, keep him at bay. Keep him behind a Paul Bearer or somebody that can like give some mystery to him. Dolph Ziggler is not the guy that's going to make Drew McIntyre over.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going down the roster here and looking at some of these names. A lot of them don't make any sense to me, and that's sad. But like people like Rhino, man, just need to go. Like he just doesn't, he shouldn't be on the main roster. You shouldn't see him on Raw, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But anyways, lots more we could get into. We'll get into that stuff next time a little bit more.
Okay.
We're running over an hour and then 15. I don't want to take all your night, but I do have a couple of video game related stuff that we got to get into.
All right.
Have you ever played Diablo 3?
Oh yeah, I am big. All Blizzard games I've put a significant amount of time into.
Stay tuned tomorrow for the rest of the conversation where we talk more about video games and get back into what's on the backlog. Thanks, everybody.